Hello, my name is Kristen Grace, and this is a warm-up video. I had intended to make this a little higher budget, but I actually realized after filming the entire thing that my microphone wasn't on and you couldn't hear anything I was saying. So I'm just going to voice over and give you some cues and you can follow along. So here we are. We're just going to start jogging in place. I really like doing this and kind of like shaking my arms out. It just kind of helps loosen up my nerves. It helps kind of get my nervous system awake and just kind of gets me prepped to start moving. Obviously now we're getting into some jumping jacks. You want to think about really pushing the floor away, so being springy in those feet. And then I like to think about pulling my shoulders down and back as I reach up overhead. I'm going to come into a deep squat here, reaching those hands overhead. Exhale on the way down, inhale on the way up. Coming down, making sure those knees are opening up, tracking over my toes. And again, I always like to think about putting my shoulders in my back pockets. Next, I'm going to bring my my feet about hip width distance. I'm going to sit back like I'm sitting in a chair and I'm reaching my hands overhead. Something I am also visualizing here is a long spine. So from the tip of my head to the base of my pelvis, and then slowly working one heel up at a time, pressing through the toe and maintaining the form throughout my upper body. Again, reaching in opposition, hands go up and out, booty goes down and back. I'm settling in here to my goddess squat. I want to make sure those knees don't cave in like I just demonstrated. Instead, I'm going to, again, think about those knees pushing over my big toe and my second toe. I like to use my arms to kind of make sure that's happening. Here I'm shifting back and forth, keeping my heels on the ground, and that's going to really settle myself in, help me stretch my Achilles. I think I'm talking here about if you can let your hips dip down a little more, but anyways, now we're moving into a forward fold. So forward fold, here I want you to think about bringing your hips closer to the floor again, widening those legs, widening those knees. Head is going to, basically what I'm doing here is I'm trying to keep my head in one spot and just allow my hips to come up and then down. I'm going to walk it out into a downward dog position here. So I'm turning around so you can see the alignment. You're going to think about pushing the floor away like I just did there and pulling my chest through my arms. It's okay if your knees are bent. It's better to have that form than it is to force straight legs and have a big rounded back, at least in my opinion, for the shoulder stretch that I'm going for. So here again, I'm pushing that floor away with the heels of my hands, pulling my chest through. I could even come a little more, but instead I'm going to roll through. This stretch feels so good, oh my god. Stretching out into a high plank. In my high plank, I am pushing the floor away. I'm thinking about spreading my shoulder blades apart. I'm thinking about squeezing my glutes, pulling my core in, so really knitting those ribs back, belly button to spine, and then I'm going to sit back into an elevated child's pose and then out into a high plank. So again, I'm going to sit back, my knees float 2 inches up off the ground, and then I'm going to press forward into that high plank. This is a really great way to get your body quickly primed, as is this. We are going to be doing, I'm going to turn around so you can see me, one shoulder tap at a time, opposite hand to opposite shoulder. I'm really going to work to try to keep my hips in one spot. I don't want them rocking back and forth as I'm doing this. So if you need to spread your legs out a little more, you can. Here I'm going to be pressing back from a plank into a pike, reaching opposite hand to opposite foot or calf or knee. My shirt said we are done and decided to come off here. But now we're going to drop to our knees, sit down into a child's pose. Here I'm going into a deep child's pose, so I'm really letting my knees open up, sitting those hips down, reaching those hands overhead, seeing if I can feel a little bit of traction. So even gripping those hands down and pulling my hips and shoulders away from my hands. From there, I'm slowly making my way up into my forearms, bringing those knees a little closer into my hips, coming into more of a activated child's pose. I'm going to press forward, tucking my tail, and then I'm coming down into this tricep push-up and pressing back. So I'm going to turn around so you can see me here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to tuck that tail. I'm going to think about, I don't want to. I'm demonstrating what not to do. I don't want to pull chest up first. I do want to pull hips and shoulders at the same time. So now I'm going all the way back. Again, my tail is tucked. My shoulders are down and back in my back pocket. I'm seeing how my head goes forward above my hands and then pushes back. I can also time my breath with that to inhale on the way down, exhale, push away. After that last one, come onto your belly, stretch those hands out into a nice wide T, palms down, and then you're gonna bend your right leg, bring it up and over. People are always like, oh, I can't do that, I'm not flexible, but it's not so much about flexibility. You'll just go to wherever feels good in your body. Don't feel like you have to match me exactly, but the idea is that we have that palm down and we stretch to wherever feels comfortable. I do this stretch pretty much every day, and I have noticed that I've gotten way more mobility from that. Now we're going to bring it back center. We want to make sure as we press up into this pose that our shoulders aren't up by our ears. So pull those shoulders down and back. Really squeeze your glutes here. That's going to allow you to get more into that back bend without hurting your low back. You're going to look your head back and forth, and then we're going to shift back into a tabletop position. I'm going to tuck my toes, lift my knees 2 inches up off the ground, and then I'm taking 4 crawls forward, and 4 crawls back. Now, as I'm doing this, I'm going to really try to keep my hips in one spot, and I'm thinking about pushing the floor away with the points that are connected, even as I lift up. So here I'm lifting up my left hand and then my right hand, and I'm pushing through those other 3 points of contact. Now my back left foot and my right foot. Nice. Now I'm going to press back up, walk those hands back into my feet, unload those hamstrings, roll up 1 vertebrae at a time, all the way to the top. I'm taking that head back and then down, really feeling that stretch, taking my time. Shoulders are still in my back pocket. I'm creating space in my neck, so I'm not crunching anything in. As I look side to side, I want to really stretch that chin over my shoulder, try to get chin aligned with the shoulder, and then work that ear for your bicep. Again, oh my God, I did not mean to say bicep. I meant ear to shoulder. Okay, carry on. And really thinking about pulling the shoulder down as you pull your ear to the opposite way. I'm going to inhale as I reach my hands up one more time. Grab onto that left wrist, pull it up and out of your left shoulder, and then push your hips to the left as you pull your left hand down with your right. Thinking about opening that chest to the front, and then go ahead and switch. Let's do it on the other side. Again, trying to think of ourselves as just pressed up against that mirror. So opening my chest up, seeing if I can be nice and flat. Coming back up, I'm going to push those hands up, drop them down, inhale up, exhale down. This is funny that I'm doing this in a voiceover. Okay, so now we are palms up, and we're going to do these these arm circles, and I'm again pulling those shoulders down. I really want to think of creating space. I'm going to change the direction with my arms, thinking about reaching those hands for opposite sides of the room, really engaging all the way through my fingertips. Turning those palms forward, I'm going to press them forward a few times and press them back and press them up. Really see how I'm engaging my core here. My ribs are knit back. Everything is turned on the whole time. Not really moving passively. Okay, there I kind of am, but up until this point, I haven't really moved passively through this warm up. So now I'm going to stretch that right arm across and my left. You can take that right hand and bring it further out to the wrist, closer into the elbow, whatever feels good for you. Inhale, bring it up, pull that. Yeah, careful your ribs aren't flaring. There we go. We want to really get those ribs knit back and also a neutral pelvis as we pull that elbow back. Good. Thinking again. My mobility isn't great here, but I am working towards putting those shoulders in my back pocket. All right, I'm going to really stretch those fingertips out for the wall and roll my wrists out, really getting all the way through my fingertips, waking everything up in my whole body, being intentional. Again, picturing those shoulders rotating around as I do that. Now this one, if it feels comfortable, you can push those hands back, connect them behind. But again, I know I sound like a broken record. Put your shoulders in your back pocket. We're going to get a soft bend in our knees and take a hinge. So I'm sending my hips to the back wall. And then I'm going to push those hands also to the back wall first. Okay? So I'm not haphazardly getting into this stretch. From here, I'm going to use my left hand to pull my right down. And as I'm doing that, I'm pushing my right hip for the back wall, bending my left leg, and looking out under my right arm. And then I'm gently and controlled going to switch to the other side. Again, that bottom arm is pulling my top arm down, and that left hip is pushing back as I press into my right foot. So intentionality is the key. If you're just kind of skimming through the warm-up, you're really not going to get a lot out of it. But you can get so much more out of what you're doing if you're just intentional about the time you put in. I think a lot of times we are doing too much without enough focus. And I think my goal for this year is to do more with less. And that means less time, but more focus. Less time, but more commitment, right? So after I'm fully warmed up, I sometimes give myself this challenge of just taking one song. And throughout this whole song, what I'm thinking of doing is not necessarily a freestyle. I feel like freestyle puts a lot of pressure on the movement sometimes. It shouldn't, but let's be real, it does. And so I like to look at this as movement exploration. All I'm doing here is I'm feeling those new pathways that I've created by doing a proper warm-up, and I'm exploring what they feel like in my body. And it's actually amazing, like even just sitting here watching this back for the first time, I'm like, oh wow, I am moving so much better than I would like in the middle of class. And I think the reason why is because my nervous system is calm. I'm not worried about getting choreography. I'm not worried about what people think of me. I'm just like exploring space, and I'm enjoying listening to the music. That's really all that's happening here. And then the more comfortable I get, you see, I'm getting into more like choreography based movement, right? It's like, it's starting to flow a little more, right? But it can't do that until I build those pathways. And I think that is what we are missing a lot of times. My AirPod fell out right here, so that's what just happened. But I think a lot of times what we're missing is just building the movement pathways in our body. And we're getting so frustrated because we're taking choreography class after choreography class, and we're dancing at the same, or we're not growing at a rate we think we should be growing. But we're also not really taking the time to build new movement pathways in our body. And the way to do that is to safely warm up, safely experiment those pathways, and then try to jump into them quickly, and then add them into choreography. And now you can see, like, I'm getting into this static, it's like the typical dance warm-up, right? But it's all static. It's not engaged, it's not dynamic, it's not active. And this is a really great routine for maybe a cool down, or like I did here, I did a full kind of more athletic warm up, and then I got into some movement expression where it feels more like a flow, and then I got into that stretch. And now like my body at this point was feeling amazing, and I ended up dancing, quite a bit after that. And so, yeah, I hope this was helpful. Like I said, I recorded it wrong, so I just figured I'd do a voiceover and enjoy.